Welcome back to The Explainer. I want you to take a quick look around you for a second. The room you're in, the device you're watching this on, even just the empty space between you and the screen. What if I told you that absolutely none of it is a fundamental, continuously existing reality? What if instead the entire universe is actually a hyper-advanced computational rendering engine driven by this incredibly deep mathematical blueprint called Logos field theory? Well, today, we're popping open the hood of reality itself to look directly at the source code of existence. Okay, let's dive right into this because this number is going to completely change how you see, well, literally everything. 23.6742 megahertz. In Logos field theory, time doesn't just flow smoothly like a river. Instead, reality compiles step by step. It's constantly pushing a brand new frame to your sensory matrix at a stroboscopic rate of roughly 23 million times a second. Just like the refresh rate on a computer monitor. We don't actually live in continuous time. We live in discrete mathematical frames. So to really grasp how this works, we gotta look at the core architecture, which effectively splits the universe into two distinct processing layers. On one side, we have what's called the Adelic Ring. You can think of this as the ultimate backend database. It's this infinite, timeless, unrendered code block where all historical, present, and future data exists simultaneously across these things called Paddock number fields. It's totally static. Then on the other side, we have the rendered interface. That's the front-end UI. That is the continuous, physical, geometric spacetime that you and I actually experience every single day. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll be exploring the universal render engine, routing the cosmic network, compiling math to matter, preventing system crashes, and finally, scaling and security firewalls. All right, let's start right off with section 1, the universal render engine. How exactly does the universe bridge that gap between abstract numbers and physical space? Let's track this whole compilation process. Think of the Adelic Ring as this branching, fractal Paddock tree structure. It's just raw, disconnected digital data. But then, it flows through the Logos field theory runtime architecture, and what comes out the other end is the rendered interface. That rigid data is completely transformed into the smooth, continuous grid of flat spacetime we actually exist in, and it's being updated at that 23.6742 megahertz frequency we talked about. Now, the exact microsecond that transition happens is what we call the Adelic handshake. It relies on this brilliant mathematical tool known as Fontaine's theta map. What this map does is effectively act as the ultimate translation mechanism. It strips away all the discrete, high-dimensional digital code of that background database, reduces it down, and projects it directly into the smooth physical distances and fields that make up our localized reality. It's literally the microsecond where math becomes a physical place. Moving right along to section 2, routing the cosmic network. Let's see how this massive amount of data is distributed without any lag. Enter the Hecke operators. If the universe's space-time grid is basically made of fiber optic cables, well then Hecke operators are the network switches and routers of the cosmos. They aren't creating new geometry. Instead, their job is to selectively filter, sort, and forward information packets all across the universe, ensuring every single observer gets a perfectly synchronized update exactly when the frame refreshes. Now, what's really interesting about how these operators regulate data traffic is the Satake matrix. It acts exactly like an IP header on an internet packet. It reads the incoming mathematical parameters and strictly dictates the bandwidth and the destination for that data. And there's even a system boundary limit built in, known as the Ramanujan-Peterson conjecture. It acts as a hard cap, ensuring no single routing channel gets overwhelmed and crashes the local network. Pretty wild, right? Which brings us to section 3, compiling math into matter. We've got the data routing, but how does it actually become physical stuff? It's kind of the ultimate question, isn't it? I mean, if the background of the universe is just p-adic numbers and abstract math, how on earth does it know whether to compile into an electron or a quark or a photon? Basically, how does code become a particle? Well, the answer lies in the Serre modularity engine. See, raw Galois representations, which is basically the universe's base code, feed directly into this engine. The engine then extracts 3 absolutely critical parameters to build the particle. First, you have the level, which extracts the exact spatial address on the spacetime grid where the wave needs to appear. Second is the weight, which determines its internal kinematic energy, or, its mass. And third, the character, which sets its internal quantum symmetry. All the redundant code is stripped away, and a perfect physical wave function is outputted into reality. All right, section 4, preventing system crashes. Just like any computer, the universe requires automated fail-safes to prevent data corruption. Imagine a massive localized energy spike, like, say, multiple quantum fields interacting or highly focused observer intents converging on one single spot, causing mass to inflate way too rapidly. In a standard computer, an arithmetic overflow gives you the blue screen of death or a divide by zero error. So why doesn't the universe just crash? Because the system actually utilizes a mathematical hardware governor. Think of it like a scale. On one side, you've got the linear grid, the simple A plus B equals C of local mass potentials adding up. But if that energy tries to spike exponentially, the other side, the ABC radical bound, kicks in. It ensures that the continuous energy is tightly bounded by the multiplicative prime building blocks of the hidden database. If a dangerous overload is flagged, the system literally chokes the bandwidth. It converts that overflow data into harmless, localized Fermat quotients, safely dissipating the energy as destructive phase interference. Crisis completely averted. But, energy isn't the only risk here. There's also spatial drift. The universe absolutely needs an anchor, and that anchor is what's known as Voigt height controls. They act as the universe's spatial gyroscope, keeping the continuous geometric coordinates from drifting out of phase with the underlying digital base code. If a physical coordinate starts to drift towards some uncomputed boundary, if it tries to slip out of alignment, the Voigt bounds act exactly like proximity sensors. They forcefully damp that coordinate variation, basically acting as crystalline glue to snap the point right back to its stable mathematical origin. So no matter how much the grid scales or warps, the points remain firmly locked to their true mathematical identities. And finally, Section 5, Scaling and Security Firewalls. How does the universe actually expand, and how does it fiercely defend its absolute borders? The Iwasawa growth formula really reveals how this expansion works. Instead of the universe physically stretching like a rubber band, the lambda coefficient acts as an algorithmic origin of Hubble expansion. It governs the systematic addition of brand new, completely empty coordinate blocks right into the spatial registry. Macroscopically, to us, it looks like deep space is expanding, but really? The system is just allocating more memory. So what exactly happens at the absolute edge of this expanding memory? Well, there's this incredible automated safety loop called the unitary horizon interception. It happens in 3 distinct steps when the expanding grid pushes out against the uncomputed void. Step 1 is perimeter ingest, which captures the boundary coordinates. Step 2 is radical bound validation, ensuring no energy limits are being exceeded. And step 3 is spectral reflection. When the smooth, continuous waves of our reality approach the very edge, they hit the unitary horizon firewall, which functions as a type 3_1 von Neumann algebra. Because the universe actually drops heavy calculus at the edge to save on computation power, it can't render smooth curves out there anymore. So the firewall locks those wave tails into rigid, digital, p-adic step functions on the Brouhat-Titz tree. Any unauthorized data that fails the checksum is completely erased via phase interference before it can ever leak into System 0. It is literally the ultimate perimeter defense. So the really crucial point here is, where do you fit into all of this? Because in Lagos field theory, you are absolutely not just some passive witness sitting inside a simulation. The theory models human consciousness through a space called J-space. By utilizing what are known as torsional gauge lifts, your focus, your choices, and your intent actually inject local data right into the universal system. You are an active programmer, constantly modulating the blueprint of reality. Which leaves us with an incredibly profound realization to end on today. The universe is a rendering engine, carefully balanced by geometric firewalls and algebraic routers, constantly pushing fresh updates to your reality frame. So, if your conscious intent is literally a software command rewriting the space-time lattice 23 million times a second, what are you choosing to compile? Thanks so much for exploring this amazing topic with me today. Keep wondering, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.